A black man jumped into the cold Texas River to save a stranger, but what he didn't know was that the woman he pulled from the water was a billionaire hiding a secret that would change both their lives forever. The crowd screamed for help as the woman's hands splashed weakly above the surface, her voice fading into the wind. No one moved, no one dared, until one man kicked off his shoes and leaped into the dark water without a second thought. When he reached her, she was already sinking. He grabbed her arm, fighting the current, calling out to keep her awake. She didn't answer. Her eyes were open, but she looked far away, as if she had already given up. That was the moment Daniel Brooks realized this wasn't just about saving a life. It was about saving someone who didn't want to be saved. And when she finally opened her eyes again, gasping for breath on the riverbank, neither of them knew that this moment, this one act of courage, would uncover a truth that had been buried for years. The air was cold that evening in Austin. The wind cut through the streets, carrying dust and the faint smell of fried food from a nearby stand. People were walking home from work, some laughing, some staring at their phones, while the river ran quietly beside them. Janeth Williams stood near the railing, her hands tucked in the pockets of her gray sweater. The sky above was pale, the color of soft ash. Her hair, hidden under a cap, moved gently with the wind. She looked like anyone else, just another tired woman trying to find peace at the end of a long day. But she was not anyone else. Janeth was one of the richest women in Texas. Her company, Williams Tech, had its name printed across skyscrapers and news headlines. She was known as a business genius, a woman who had turned a small startup into an empire. But in that quiet moment by the river, she didn't feel like a genius. She felt like a shadow, tired of the noise, tired of pretending that money could fill the empty space inside her. She leaned closer to the water, her phone in hand, trying to take a picture of the reflection of the city lights. It was supposed to calm her. But a man walking by with a large backpack brushed against her shoulder without looking, and the phone slipped from her fingers. She reached for it by instinct. Her balance shifted. Her foot slid on the metal edge, and in a blink, she was falling forward. The icy water hit her like a wall. It was shock, fear, and silence all at once. Her mouth opened, but the river filled it. She kicked, clawed, tried to rise, but the cold made her limbs heavy. The light above her dimmed. The sounds of the world faded. Her lungs screamed for air, and a strange calm filled her chest. Up on the bridge, people shouted, but no one jumped. They were scared. No one wanted to risk it. No one except Daniel Brooks. He had been walking home from a nearby construction site, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his boots covered in dust. When he heard the screams, he dropped everything and ran. He didn't stop to think. He saw her hand disappear under the water, and that was enough. He took off his shoes, threw down his jacket, and jumped. The cold bit into his skin, but he pushed forward, his arms slicing through the water. He couldn't see her at first, only bubbles, then a flash of pale skin below the surface. He dove, caught her arm, and pulled hard. Her body was limp. Her eyes were open but empty. Daniel pushed her upward, breaking through the surface, both of them gasping. He turned her toward the riverbank, swimming with one arm, holding her tightly with the other. The crowd above started shouting directions, pointing toward a ladder fixed to the wall. "Stay with me," he said between breaths. "Don't close your eyes. Come on, stay with me." Her lips were blue. Her hands hung loose. The cold made his muscles ache, but he kept moving until his fingers touched the metal of the ladder. Someone above reached down to help. Daniel lifted her as high as he could, and two men pulled her onto the walkway. He climbed out after her, coughing, shivering, and kneeling beside her. Water ran from his hair down his face. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked softly. She coughed, rolling to her side, spitting out water, her chest shaking. Her breathing was weak but steady. When she looked up at him, her eyes were glassy, confused. "You're okay now," he said. "You're safe." Janeth blinked slowly, trying to focus on his face. All she saw was warmth and strength in his eyes. "You didn't have to," she whispered. Daniel gave a tired smile. "Yeah, I did." Someone from the crowd handed him a towel. He ignored it and instead pulled off his wet flannel shirt, wrapping it around her shoulders. "You need to get warm," he said. "My truck's right there. I've got a blanket and a heater." She wanted to say no, to push him away, but she was shaking too much to argue. He helped her to her feet, steadying her with one arm. People clapped quietly as they walked past, but Daniel didn't notice. He just wanted to make sure she didn't collapse. His truck was old and worn, but the inside was warm. He turned on the heat and gave her a sweatshirt from the back seat. It smelled like oil and cedar wood. "Here," he said gently. "It's dry. Change into it. I'll wait outside." She hesitated, then nodded. Her fingers were stiff from the cold, but she changed quickly, wrapping the sweatshirt tightly around her. When she looked at him through the window, she saw him rubbing his arms, his own clothes soaked through, but his eyes stayed on her, worried. After a minute, he got back in. "What's your name?" he asked. She froze. If she told him, he would know. Everyone in Texas knew the name Janeth Williams. For once, she didn't want to be her. "Jenny," she said quietly. "Jenny Cross." He smiled, stretching his hand toward her. "Nice to meet you, Jenny. I'm Daniel Brooks." She took his hand. It was rough, warm, and strong. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," he said. "Just promise me you'll stay away from that railing for a while." She gave a small laugh, weak but real. "I will." They sat there for a moment, the sound of the heater filling the silence. Daniel looked at her, unsure why this woman he just met felt so different. Something about her eyes told him she was hiding pain far deeper than a fall into a river. And as Janeth sat there in his old truck, wrapped in his shirt, her heart trembled with a feeling she couldn't name. She didn't know why a stranger's kindness felt like something she had been waiting for her whole life. That night, as the rain started to fall outside, both of them knew one thing, even if they couldn't say it. Something had begun, something neither of them could stop. The night after the rescue was long and restless for both of them. Daniel couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the woman's pale face under the water, her hand slipping away before he reached her. He had pulled many things out of rivers before, logs, tires, even a lost dog once, but never a person. This was different. There had been something in her eyes when she woke up, something broken that didn't belong to someone who wanted to live. He lay on his bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the old fan. His body was sore from the cold water, but his mind kept replaying that moment. He wondered if she was all right. He had driven her home, made sure she got inside safely, but something told him that wasn't the end of it. Across town, in a small apartment she rented under a fake name, Janeth Williams sat by the window wrapped in a blanket. Her hair was still damp. The smell of Daniel's sweatshirt, the one she had borrowed, lingered in the room. She pressed it to her chest, remembering his calm voice, his hands lifting her from the water, his eyes steady and real. For years, she had lived in a world where everything was planned, guarded, and controlled. She had security around her at all times, a team to handle her problems, and money to solve almost anything. Yet when her life had been seconds away from ending, none of that mattered. It had been a stranger, a man with nothing to gain, who had saved her. She couldn't stop thinking about him. The next morning, Daniel's sister, Kendra, stopped by his small house before work. She worked as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital and always checked on him when he looked tired. "You look like you fought a storm," she said, dropping her bag on the chair. Daniel chuckled softly. "Something like that." "You gonna tell me why your boots are still wet?" she asked. He told her everything, from the scream by the river to pulling the woman out and driving her home. Kendra listened, her eyes widening. "You jumped into the river at night?" "Couldn't just stand there," he said simply. Kendra shook her head and smiled. "You've got Dad's heart, always saving people." She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat. "So, what's her name?" Daniel hesitated. "Jenny. That's what she said." "Jenny what?" "Cross." Kendra nodded slowly. "You plan on seeing her again?" Daniel shrugged. "I don't know. She almost drowned. She might just want to forget it." But later that day, while he was fixing a broken fence at a client's home, he couldn't get her face out of his head. The way she looked when she said thank you, the way her voice shook, the small smile she gave before she walked into her apartment. That evening, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Hello?" A soft voice came through. "Is this Daniel Brooks?" "Yeah. Who's this?" "It's Jenny, the one from the river." He stopped what he was doing, his breath catching for a moment. "Hey, you okay?" "I am now," she said quietly. "I just wanted to say thank you again. I don't think I really said it right last night." "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "Anyone would have done the same." "Maybe," she said, but no one else jumped. There was a pause, just long enough for both of them to feel it. "Would you like to meet for coffee?" she asked finally. "Just to talk." Daniel smiled to himself. "Yeah, I'd like that." They met the next afternoon at a small diner near the river. Daniel arrived early, nervous, without knowing why. When she walked in, he almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was tied back, and she wore a simple white blouse with jeans. She looked calm, but her eyes carried a sadness that didn't fit her smile. "Hi," she said softly, sitting across from him. "Hey," he replied. "You look better today." "Thanks to you," she smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. They talked about small things at first, the weather, the coffee, the noise of the diner. Then Daniel asked, "So, what do you do, Jenny?" She hesitated for a second too long. "I used to work in tech," she said carefully. "Now I'm just taking a break, trying to figure out what I want next." Daniel nodded. "That's fair. Everyone needs a break sometimes." He told her about his job, how he ran a small construction company with 3 other men, fixing old houses and restoring community buildings. He spoke with pride, but not arrogance. He talked about his father, who had been a firefighter, and how losing him 5 years ago had changed his life. Janeth listened closely. No one had talked to her like this in years, not about profit or deals, just life. Real life. "Your father must have been brave," she said softly. "He was," Daniel said. "He taught me to do the right thing, even when no one's watching." She looked down at her cup. "He raised a good man." Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither spoke. There was something in that silence that felt safe, something neither of them had expected to find. When they finished, Daniel walked her to her car. The sky was turning pink, and the river shimmered in the distance. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I'm glad you called," he replied. She smiled again, this time more real. "Maybe we can do this again?" "Sure," he said. "Next time, my treat." As she drove away, Daniel stood watching the taillights fade. Something about her stayed with him. She wasn't just someone he had saved. She was someone who carried a story she wasn't ready to tell. Back in her apartment, Janeth sat on the couch, staring at the wall. She had almost told him the truth twice, but fear stopped her. What would he think if he knew? If he knew she was Janeth Williams, the billionaire who owned half of Austin's business blocks, the one whose company laid off hundreds without blinking, he would never look at her the same way. For years, she had hidden behind success and money, but for the first time, she wanted to be seen as human. Daniel saw her that way, and she didn't want to lose it. That night, as the rain tapped softly against the window, she whispered to herself, "Just a little longer. Let me be Jenny, a little longer." At the same time, Daniel sat at his kitchen table, staring at his phone. He wanted to call her again, but didn't. Something deep inside told him this woman was going to change his life. He just didn't know how. He leaned back, listening to the rain, unaware that the woman he had saved carried a secret big enough to turn his world upside down. The next few weeks passed slowly, yet every day pulled them closer together. Daniel and Jenny started meeting often, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to walk along the Austin Riverwalk where they had first met. It became their quiet place. The sound of the moving water, the city lights at night, the smell of roasted corn from nearby stands, it all made the world feel softer. For Daniel, those moments were a kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. His days were long and hard, spent lifting heavy wood, hammering nails, and driving from one worksite to another. But when he saw Jenny, the tiredness disappeared. She listened to him, really listened. Not like most people who only waited for their turn to talk. She asked about his mother, about Kendra, about the old church he was helping restore in South Austin. He noticed how her face softened when he spoke about helping the community. She didn't talk much about herself, though. Every time he asked about her work or family, she gave short answers. "I'm between jobs," she'd say with a small smile. "Just trying to live differently for a while." He didn't push. Everyone had their own past, and he could see that hers was heavy. One afternoon, they met at a small barbecue spot tucked behind a gas station. The place smelled of smoke and sauce, and people crowded around metal tables under the warm Texas sun. Daniel handed her a plate of ribs and smiled. "Not fancy," he said, "but this is the best in Austin." "It smells amazing," she said, laughing softly. She picked up a rib and took a bite. And for a moment, she forgot who she was. The laughter came easier around him. "So," Daniel said, wiping his hands, "you ever thought about what you want to do next? Work-wise, I mean." She looked down at her plate. "I've been thinking about starting something small, something that helps people. Maybe a local business." "That sounds good," Daniel said. "You'd be great at it." She smiled, touched by his belief. He didn't know she already owned one of the biggest companies in Texas, that she had an office high above the skyline with her name written in gold letters. She didn't lie to hurt him. She lied because she liked how it felt to be seen as just Jenny. After lunch, they walked near the water. Daniel pointed at the church down the street. "That's one of my projects," he said proudly. "It's old, been standing since the 1800s. My crew's fixing it up." "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "Yeah, it means a lot to the people around here," Daniel said. "My dad used to say buildings hold memories. I guess I believe that." She looked at him, wondering how a man with such simple words could carry so much wisdom. As the weeks went by, the lies began to weigh on her. Every time he looked at her with trust, it hurt. Every time he told her something real about himself, she felt smaller for hiding who she was. But she couldn't stop. Not yet. She told herself that maybe she'd tell him later, when the time was right, when he could see her heart before seeing her money. Then, one afternoon, while Daniel was on site, he received a call from his sister. "Hey, I've got news," Kendra said. "That old church you're working on, the one in South Austin, guess who just bought the block around it?" "Who?" "Some tech company. Williams Tech. They plan to turn the area into a corporate park. You might lose your job if they start tearing things down." Daniel frowned. "Williams Tech?" "Yeah," she said. "That billionaire woman, Janeth Williams, the one they always show on TV, you know, fancy cars, magazine covers, big speeches about innovation." Daniel felt a sharp pull in his chest. He looked at the church walls rising behind him. "You're telling me she's going to destroy all this?" "That's what the papers say," Kendra replied. "It's a shame. That company doesn't care about old buildings or history." Daniel hung up, shaking his head. "People like that," he muttered. "They don't even see what they're ruining." That night, he told Jenny about it while they walked by the river. He didn't notice how stiff she went when he mentioned the name. "There's this rich woman," he said, "Janeth Williams. She owns Williams Tech. Her company bought the block where the church is. They might tear it all down. Can you imagine? People worshiped there for over 100 years, and she's just going to bulldoze it." Jenny stopped walking. Her mouth went dry. "Maybe she doesn't know," she said quietly. "Maybe she's not the one making that choice." Daniel shook his head. "She knows. People like that always know. They sit in big offices with their perfect suits, and they never see the people they hurt. I'm tired of folks like that deciding what stays and what goes." Jenny couldn't speak. She looked away, blinking hard to hide the tears building in her eyes. "I should go," she said suddenly. "I'm not feeling well." "Hey," Daniel said, reaching for her arm. But she stepped back. "I just need to rest," she said, forcing a smile. "I'll call you tomorrow." He nodded, confused, but gentle. "Okay, take care of yourself." She walked away quickly, her heart pounding, her chest tight with guilt. When she got back to her apartment, she sank into the chair and covered her face with her hands. The man she loved had just called her the kind of person he hated most. At that moment, her phone buzzed. It was her assistant, Laura, reminding her of a meeting the next morning about the same development project Daniel had mentioned. "Cancel it," Janeth said sharply. "Ma'am, cancel everything related to that project. Tell the board it's off. Janeth, this is a multi-million-dollar deal, the investors." "I said cancel it," she said again. "We're not destroying those buildings." She ended the call and sat there in silence. The lie was closing in on her. She had crossed a line that could not be undone. Meanwhile, Daniel sat on his porch, thinking about her. Something about the way she had left didn't feel right. She looked scared, not sick. He didn't understand it, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Jenny Cross was not telling him the whole truth. The next morning, Janeth stared at herself in the mirror. The disguise of Jenny no longer looked real. The cap, the simple clothes, the small apartment, it was all a wall she had built to hide from her world. But Daniel had made her feel again, and now that same feeling was tearing her apart. She whispered to her reflection, "You have to tell him." But fear whispered back, "And when you do, he'll never look at you the same." That night, Daniel got a message from her phone. I need to see you tomorrow. There's something I have to tell you." He stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't know what it meant, but his gut told him whatever was coming would change everything. Morning came quiet and gray. The sky over Austin looked heavy, as if it carried the same weight Janeth felt in her chest. She sat by her window, staring at the streets below, holding her phone in both hands. Today was the day she would tell Daniel the truth. The thought made her stomach twist. She had written a message many times that night, trying to find the right words, but deleted them all. There was no right way to tell a man who had trusted her that she had lied about everything. Still, she couldn't live in the shadows anymore. If he walked away, then at least she would know she tried. When she stepped out of her apartment, she left her baseball cap behind. She didn't want to hide anymore. Her real face, the one the world saw in newspapers and on television, would have to face whatever came next. Daniel was already waiting by the river where they first met. He stood with his hands in his pockets, his eyes on the water. The air was cool, and the smell of damp earth filled the breeze. When Janeth approached, he turned and smiled, but the smile faded as he saw something different in her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, though her voice trembled when she spoke. "There's something I need to tell you, Daniel, something important." He frowned slightly. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, looking at the same water that had almost taken her life. "My name isn't Jenny Cross," she said slowly. "It's Janeth Williams." Daniel's face changed. The name hit him like a blow. For a second, he didn't speak. "Janeth Williams," he repeated quietly. "The billionaire from the news?" "Yes," she said, her hands shaking. "That's me." He stepped back, confusion clouding his face. "So, all this time, you've been lying?" "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said quickly. "I just wanted to be seen as a person. I'm always surrounded by people who treat me like money, not like a woman. When you saved me, you didn't know who I was, you just helped. I wanted to hold on to that feeling, just for a while." Daniel looked away, running his hand over his face. "You let me talk about you. You let me tell you how angry I was at Williams Tech. You let me say all that, and you said nothing?" "I stopped the project," she said softly. "The one in South Austin. I canceled it the same night you told me about it. I couldn't stand the thought of destroying something you cared about." He turned back to her, his eyes still full of pain. "You could have just told me the truth." "I was afraid," she said. "I didn't want you to see me as another rich woman. I didn't want to lose what we had." The silence that followed was heavy. The sound of the river filled the space between them. Daniel finally spoke. "I don't know what to say. I feel like I don't even know who you are." "You do," she said softly. "You know me better than anyone ever has. Everything I said to you, every laugh, every word, that was real. The name wasn't." He looked at her, searching her face. "So what happens now?" "I don't know," she whispered, "but I had to tell you. I couldn't keep lying. If you walk away, I'll understand." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked down at the ground, then back at her. "I need time to think." She nodded, her eyes wet. "Take all the time you need." He walked away slowly, his boots echoing against the pavement. She stood there watching until he disappeared around the corner, and the tears she had been holding finally fell. For days, Daniel kept to himself. He went to work, came home, and said little. Kendra noticed the silence. "She told you the truth, didn't she?" his sister asked one evening. Daniel nodded. "Yeah. And you walked away." "I didn't know what else to do." Kendra sat beside him on the porch. "Did she lie about how she felt about you?" "No," Daniel said quietly. That part was real. Then maybe you're mad because you care about her, Kendra said gently. She made a mistake, yes, but she also tried to make it right. She stopped that project because of you. Maybe she's not the person you think she is. Daniel sighed. You sound just like Dad. Kendra smiled. He'd tell you to stop running from something good just because it scares you. Daniel stared at the dark sky. Maybe his sister was right. Maybe he had let pride blind him. He missed Janeth's voice, her laughter, the way she looked at him like he mattered. The next morning, Daniel drove downtown to the Williams Tech Tower. The building looked nothing like his world. Glass walls rose into the clouds, reflecting the morning light. He almost turned around twice, but something in him wouldn't let him. At the front desk, he said, I need to see Janeth Williams. The receptionist looked unsure. Do you have an appointment? No, but tell her. Daniel Brooks is here. She'll know. A few minutes later, her assistant appeared and led him up to the top floor. The elevator doors opened to a wide office filled with soft light and city views. Janeth was standing near the window, her back turned. When she heard his voice, she froze. Daniel, she said quietly. He stepped closer. You stopped that project. Yes, she said, because you were right. I had forgotten what mattered. He nodded slowly. You didn't have to do that for me. I didn't do it for you, she said softly. I did it because it was the right thing. But you helped me see that. For a long moment, they stood there in silence. Then Daniel spoke again. You lied, and I can't pretend it didn't hurt. But I also know you weren't trying to use me. You just wanted to be treated like everyone else. Tears filled her eyes. I wanted to be seen, and with you, I was. He smiled faintly. Then maybe we can try again, this time with no lies. Her eyes widened slightly. You mean that? He nodded. Yeah, but no more pretending. You're Janeth Williams, billionaire or not. And I'm Daniel Brooks, a man who builds things. If this is going to work, we build it together. A tear rolled down her cheek. She stepped closer and took his hand. I'd like that very much. They stood together. The city spread beneath them, both aware of how far apart their worlds had been and how close they were now. Months later, they returned to the same river where it all began. The evening sun touched the water with soft light. Daniel held her hand. Hard to believe it's been a year, he said. It feels like yesterday, Janeth replied. That was the day everything changed. Daniel turned to her, smiling. You ready for another change? She laughed softly. What do you mean? He knelt down and pulled a small box from his pocket. Janeth Williams, he said, you jumped into my life without warning. You made me see love in a way I never understood before. Will you marry me? Her hands covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Yes, Daniel, she said, her voice shaking. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and the crowd around them clapped. The same river that had once nearly taken her life now carried their reflections side by side. As they held each other close, Janeth whispered, Thank you for saving me. Daniel smiled and kissed her forehead. Thank you for being worth saving. The wind moved gently across the water, and somewhere deep inside, both of them knew this was more than love. It was grace, second chances, and the kind of truth that no lie could ever bury. Dear viewers, this story reminds us that sometimes the people who save us are the ones we least expect. Daniel didn't jump into that cold Texas river for fame or reward. He did it because his heart told him it was right. And Janeth, for all her power and wealth, learned that love built on truth is worth more than anything money can buy. This story is not just about a rescue. It is about grace, forgiveness, and second chances. It is about two people from different worlds learning that what truly matters is not what we have, but who we become when love finds us. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. Tell us where you are watching from and what lesson you learned from Daniel and Janeth's journey. Do you believe that love can break barriers of class, race, and pride? Have you ever met someone who changed how you see the world? We would love to hear your thoughts below. Your words encourage us to keep creating stories that remind the world of kindness, courage, and real love. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. And if you want more emotional and powerful stories like this one, type "more stories" in the comments. You'll be the first to see the next heart-touching story we bring to life. Thank you for watching. Thank you for feeling. And thank you for believing that love still wins.